and I are talking, that's the conscious place that, we're actively engaged in. But the subconscious is what is being triggered by people, places, and things around you. And then people will like, I don't know why they did that or said that, and I'm stuck and I need more clarity, and all of those questions. And I'm the one who can dive deep into the subconscious. I can tell you about you. You don't have to tell me a thing. All I need is your first name. And then what happens is I'll bring your subconscious to the conscious, and then I'll tell you how that is relating to what's going on with you now. And I can shift it from your energy field, and you'll feel lighter. Excuse me. You'll feel like there's hope. You'll feel like, things are changing, like things that you're saying you want start happening. And it is as simple as that. You can actually find me on my website, which is terriechristine.com. That's Terrie. Sorry, that's my kitty. I am also on Facebook, which is Terrie Christine 333, Instagram, TikTok. If you Google my name, there's thousands and thousands of pages, I think. I do quite often a lot of social media, and you can also find me on Real Housewives of Potomac and Love and Marriage DC, which is on the OWN network.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing all of that, Terry. You have quite the experience and insight when it comes to everything that you shared.
Yes, we all have the ability to do, the things that I do. However, just like you may be, hanging out, you'll get this feeling like, I shouldn't go, but you end up going anyway. And you go and you have an awful time. And then you say, man, I shouldn't have gone. I knew I shouldn't have gone. And that's you doubting what you are already feeling before you went. And a lot of people will question or doubt or push aside the feeling. And that actually is your intuition giving you a screenshot or like a little crack to the open door of what the strongest probability is moving forward. And most of us do just push that away.
How did you get started in this type of work and why?
I love that question because there's a couple of things that happened that catapulted me here. But the first one, I was actually hit by a car when I was 8 years old, broke my jaw, lacerated my liver. I was in a coma for 10 days, in the hospital for a month. And my life changed then when I started, well, when I left the hospital and was home healing. I became a master manifester and I didn't know it. Like, well, my parents were teenagers when they gave birth to all three children, and we were not triplets. By the time my mom was 18, the third one popped out. And so there was a lot of lack in our household. And so all of my childhood, the word NO was the most predominant word in our four walls. And when I got out of the hospital, I said to myself, no, I want to turn that into KNOW. So here I was, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, thinking the things that I wanted, knowing I could have it. And all of these things started happening, having lack in the household. Your clothes don't fit as well as they should. Your shoes are kind of falling apart. And I said, no, I don't want this anymore. So neighbors would give me things, family members would give me things, so much so that my mom started telling everybody to stop giving me stuff. But I didn't realize what I was doing because I truly said, no, I'm not going to live like what they're telling me I should live. I'm going to live like what I want. And so as I was developing and not knowing that I was manifesting, because I'm like, I'm going to do it. Then I got a little restricted and a little distracted from the 20s and 30s and working two jobs and hustling. And then at 40 years old, at the end of a 14-year relationship, the father of my children, I had been given him so much. I had been pouring in and pouring in. And if anybody understands this part, when you pour in so much and you don't receive, you just become an empty vessel. So I was lonely, laying next to someone. I was tired. I was angry. I was resentful. Two beautiful children. And I didn't want to be in the physical body anymore. I knew that I couldn't do it, but I said, okay, 3 a.m., got out of bed, went into the bathroom, laid on the floor, and cried my entire soul out and said, I'm ready, God. Please just take me. The children will be fine. Within that moment, it was a form of lucid dreaming. I was wide awake. My eyes were closed. The more I blinked with my eyes closed, it turned into literally the universe. I could see all of these stars. I could feel this vast expansion. There was dampness all around me. And then I simply just said, I'm at peace. I'm so grateful. I could feel it because I had lifted out of my body. And then I heard three words: love will come. It was masculine. It was all around me. And it was exactly what I was wanting from my partner. And I wasn't getting it. When I heard it, it was as if God threw a rope down into the hole that I was in, and I pulled myself out. I stood up, I shook, and I said, what in the world just happened? Because prior to that very moment, I was 100% corporate. I didn't know what yoga was. I wasn't any part of any wellness at all. I just worked and took care of the kids. And when I woke up the next day, I had this urge to go to the bookstore. I worked a 9 to 5, took care of the kids. He just read the newspaper, watched TV, and mowed the yard. I did everything inside the house, and I was so overloaded that I said, I'm going to go. I went to the bookstore. I came back with at least 50 books, and they were authors that I had never heard of. But now I call them Psychic 101. They are the ones, the masters of energy work and all of those things. So it's Eckhart Tolle, Wayne Dyer, Esther Hicks, and I just brought them all home and I was reading them as if I was speed reading. And I'm like, this is making sense to me. And it gave me enough strength to leave that relationship. And then I became and was on the journey to where I am today and just Reiki, essential oils, crystals, things that I'm like, what is this? What is this? And each one of that, I call it a lily pad when it comes to the world of spirituality and energy work. It's like jump on the lily pad like a frog until you're finished, and then you jump onto the next, and you're gaining the knowledge and you're moving forward from there. And it actually catapulted me to where I am 20 years later.
Beautiful story. And what I took from that is someone who's overcome something that was very traumatic and unexpected in a lot of ways. And you found yourself exactly how you wanted to be. And one thing I want to highlight, and I've shared this with people who've asked me, your 20s. We love it. We can do so much. But as we get older in age, we look back and we're like, whew, thank God I survived that because it's a
Exactly.
right? It's like a decade
Oh,
of whatever. Like, as you look back on your 20s, do you even recognize that person anymore?
I love your questions. Absolutely not. I I saw myself. It's very interesting. As I explained that my parents were teenagers, and I mean, technically, right? 18 years old, three kids. And my grandfather was World War II veteran. My grandmother worked for Bell Atlantic, which turned into AT&T, and T, and she was the switchboard operator with those, metal rods you put into the holes. And, they worked like old school, no credit cards. You have to put the money in the bank. When you want to buy something, you pull it out and buy your washer and dryer and all of that. Now, this is very important to hear. So, my sister and I and brother, I have a one year older brother. I'm the middle one, but we were taught just as I explained. So, in our 20s, we're all three of us working two jobs. In our 30s, we're wanting to buy things, but because we're all taught that you have to have the money in the bank, we would buy things that were used. And so by the time I hit early 30s, I said to myself, I don't want to do this anymore. And actually, it was mid 20s. I said, I don't want to do this anymore because I would plan to buy a washer and dryer, and then something else would break right before I got the whole amount of money. And so I was constantly moving things around and still having to buy used things. And I finally told my sister, I am so done. I'm not doing this anymore. This is not the way to live. I'm struggling all the time and I'm working 60-hour weeks. No joke. I was exhausted and working constantly. And that's what I did in my 20s. I wasn't a party girl. I worked two full-time jobs, constantly working. And so when I finally decided to say, no, I'm not doing this, and I've lived such a well-rounded atmosphere in my life, from the hustler to the, working constantly, and then, work moving up in the corporate world, and in my 30s I could move back to one and a half jobs. So I had a part-time and a full-time. But I said, when I decided not to do that anymore, I said, I'm going out and I'm buying a new car. I told my sister, I said, I'm not going to live outside of my means, but I know I can do it. And I did it. And then after that, everything started gently shifting. All of a sudden, there was more money in the bank, even though I wasn't working anymore. I things were coming to me fluidly with ease and grace, because the difference between what our parents and grandparents showed us, you have to hang on and strangle hold survival, meaning they showed us that money was a mechanism for survival. And so once I said, I'm not doing that anymore. And then I said, I can do it where I can buy a new car. And then all of a sudden I was buying a new washer and dryer and I didn't have any debt. And I was like, I'm buying something new. And I'm like, no debt. And then I realized that money is like a, a little wave that comes up on the beach. So you'll find that little wave that comes up. Sometimes it'll bubble, it'll trickle down into the sand, and then it just gently goes back into the ocean. That's exactly how abundance, because I don't like to call it money because it does have this like, oh, I gotta have it or I gotta have it to live, right? But once we turn it into abundance, abundance is a lot more than just a money. And so then it comes in, but it gently can go out as well. And it creates opportunities to create more abundance and more fun and adventure and opportunities. And once we see it and receive it that way, then you feel more expanded and feel more supported.
Do you think your near-death experience played a role in you becoming more appreciative in the way that you just described?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because when a person becomes I look at it as the last step, and that's where I was. When you get to the point where you are ready to take that last breath and that's it, there's nothing else to say. That's it, I'm done. I'm accepting right here to let everything, including this physical body, go. And when you hear something so profound that connects directly into your soul. When I heard love will come, no one told me that. The being in that expanded sense, and when it said it to me, was as if it was a father holding their baby for the first time saying, I love you. It made me feel exactly like that. And so being able to feel that and then coming out of what just happened, it's like, what? You couldn't deny that something so magical and life altering, that I knew that everything that I was asking for, I was going to receive. And the one thing I was asking for was love. I just didn't love myself enough. I was busy focusing on pushing out and grabbing to pull in love, thinking that everything and everyone and all my experiences are going to show me love, instead of that love being right inside of me.
I spoke to a few people, and many times when the ones that I spoke to have a near-death experience, what they've shared is they realize one, life is shorter than a lot of people think it is, and two, they begin to realize that maybe what they were told from a young age is not the way they want to live their life, similar to what you described. So, what they do now, they have this sense of daring, this sense of fearlessness, not recklessness, but they're
Yes.
bolder, they're stronger, they're more confident because they realize, hey, I've been living my life in a way that if I were to die today, I would have regret. And because they've had that flash before their eyes, they make changes. How many changes did you make when you realize I need to do something differently? I want the new clothes. I want the different experiences. What else did you change in your life?
Oh my gosh. I changed the way that I was giving and receiving. I wasn't holding back anymore. I changed the way I communicated. I changed the way I spoke, meaning I started speaking more from my heart versus withdrawing and waiting of because of fear of retaliation or fear of what if I hurt their feelings. There's so many things when you brought that up is that we'll live through life and be frustrated and angry because we can't understand why we can't get what we want. But the bottom line is, let's think about this, just like this screen, there's four walls. That's just like your house. And your house is going to show you patterns, meaning your caregivers, your mom, your dad, your grandparents. They are also showing you their limiting beliefs, their restrictions, their fears. But the child is seeing everything for the first time. And they say, um, pay attention to your elders, speak to your adults are speaking the truth, and and then the adult will say, oh, don't tell your brother, you don't want to hurt his feelings, and that's put upon us as a child not to tell our sibling or our, that mom gave us a piece of candy and you're not allowed to have one because yet that was the last one. And so there's all of these things that we as a child will say, oh my God, in that moment, mom was crying or dad was angry or grandpa made a decision and now the car is gone. And then they're deciding in their head that they're not good enough or they're not heard or decisions can be detrimental. So you have to slow down and become a procrastinator. And all of these things start building up. But that's in your childhood, but it's a blueprint, and that's why it's the subconscious, because consciously as an adult, you're living. Well, most people can't remember 3 years old, 1 year old, even 2 months old, but your subconscious does. They remember the feelings of mom getting really upset because she burned the cake, and so a child could go, ooh, that they'll grow up and I don't like to cook. Just from that one time that mom burned the cake and she was screaming and crying because it was someone's birthday. It was dad's birthday. It could have been something like that. And she cried because he was going to be home in an hour. And it's just like that. So when you have all of these things in your subconscious that you don't remember, but you're being triggered by it, you have to stop in those moments and say, wait, this is not them. It's my feeling from what they said or how they acted or what I'm receiving, all of that. How old was I when I felt this way? Who was I with? And what feeling was it? So when you ask those three questions in the moment of feeling something that doesn't feel supportive or love to you, you'll be able to dive deep into figuring out that, oh my gosh, I'm procrastinating because, the cake story. And if you can't remember the story, it usually is when you see patterns of mom or you see patterns of dad or whoever your caregivers were, and then those are the most predominant ones. So it's very difficult for a person to figure out their own subconscious limiting beliefs because most of the time they don't remember them and they'll only think about what's being transpired right and before their eyes. And so that's why I do what I do. I bring that subconscious forward and then help you to shift it and see things. I give you tips and tricks. Many people do come to podcasts or various different places and ask me these same exact questions. Well, how do I do it on my own? How can you tell me? I just want it right now. And and unless you can put your piece of your puzzle together and understand why you have that feeling of procrastination, it can be quite difficult to put it together. But as you're developing and growing and learning, instead of saying, "Oh, I don't want to do that," move into it and say, "There's something in it for me," instead of saying, "I don't want to do that." Maybe, and I'm not saying, a job, if you're not happy with your job, it's not fulfilling your soul. It's not making you feel valuable for yourself. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying, let's say, go to a party or whatever. It's the easy things, right? But throughout life, I can say I've changed 100%, 100% on how I see things, how I embrace knowledge and learning, even little things like anything you're saying, the questions you're asking, how you're responding. It's like, oh, this is great. How your audience and how you have grown your audience because of how you respond and ask questions. So it's always something that I'm always curious to know and learn from every single person. And when we're open to learn from every single thing around us, then we'll find that life isn't as hard as we think.
I remember the days where I thought I knew everything, and if I ever wanted to fix something, I'm like, yeah, I could do it myself. Then I turned 30 and I was like, oh my God, Terry, I need all the coaches, all the mentors. I need everybody because
Yeah.
there's things. First and foremost, we're so arrogant in our teens and our 20s, right? We're
Yeah,
arrogant
yeah,
in our
yeah,
ignorance. Let's just throw that out there. But another thing
yeah,
that I realized is maybe I didn't want to be seen as weak. I needed someone else to fix something because as a child, a lot of the love was conditional. So I had to be strong to get the validation, to get the attention. And I know a lot of men will say they experience that, and women probably experience it as well, but maybe in a different way. So when you're helping these people, how do you get them to then self-identify and then realize, hey, I need the Terrys in my life to help me?
yeah. Well, I was given a few counterpoints, but you just said a few things. So you said at a certain point, I'll just do it myself. That question in itself, now listen up, that exact question is a disconnect. I call it God source energy. You can call it higher light, love, universe. I just call it God. So that's a disconnect from God. Now, how does that happen? What happens is when a child says why. Why means, why is mommy and daddy arguing? Why is daddy coming home late, mom's sitting at the table and we're eating late? Why can't I have five toys when she only gave me one? A child will have these things and say, why? Most of the time, the caregiver won't answer the question because the child's not going and asking it, they're internalizing. And then within that why, look at it as like you're a big, bright bubble. And the more you say why, the more that bubble will constrict. And now you're pulling your energy away, and you'll feel that you're isolated, have to do things all on your own. You can do them faster than anyone else. Because I used to be like that. I used to be type A and would say, forget it, I'll just do it myself. And because I figured it'd take longer to teach someone or show them. No, because now you're setting people up for failure, because if you're showing them something new, and then they can expand and grow as well. However, let's take it back. So you're saying why. Somewhere in your childhood you were saying why, and you even said it with the dynamics of your parents. And so now you're like, why can't they get along? Why are they arguing? Why do I have to fight what I get? Why are they not listening to me? Why can't I speak freely? Why isn't it not safe to speak freely? Right? So why? And did you see how I was like kind of like cocooning then. So that's exactly what happens. And so then many people will just like, forget it, I'll just do it. I have to work really hard. I have to hustle. That's what I was taught as well. Because every time I asked my mom, what is she saying no? I would say, well, why can't I have it? Because I said so. So that's where I said, I'm done with that. So when we're disconnecting from source energy, then the things that we're trying to create as our reality takes 100 times longer. It did for me, and I know you experienced that as well. You wish, why does this take so long to get to my end result? Because we're hustling on our own energy instead of trusting that it can happen. Instead of just saying, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. I'm still taking action to step into it. But whatever happens, if there's other people involved, then that's okay. I can accept it like a job. You fill out the application, you send in your resume, you have the interview, and then after that, I really want it. And you're feeling into it. You should feel into it before you get there because they can feel it, meaning the people that are interviewing you can feel you. I know I'm jumping around, but I'm trying to explain how that when we are allowing ourselves to live in the space of accepting and trusting ourselves, our feelings, and knowing that no matter what happens, it's okay, then we won't be feeling like we're setting ourselves up for failure or feeling disappointed or our expectations didn't work out. And then that's where you are actually setting yourself up for failure when you're expecting something to be a certain way. And there can be a little judgment in that too. But being able to say, okay, I am, I want this job. I really want this job. I can clear my mind in the shower, feel like I'm in the job, feel like I'm doing the job, knowing I have the capacity to do the job. And then you go in for the interview. If it doesn't work out, I always tell everyone, do you realize that just because that door didn't open, it was saying that the door you're saying you want is over here? So don't, I just got a flash. I love the flashes. Here's the perfect example. So I was looking to move my studio. It was right before COVID. And of course, nobody knew what was going to happen. And I was partnering with two other practitioners in the wellness industry, but they didn't do what I did. We found the location. I was the one who was going to step up and sign for everything, and they were going to sublease from me. I took the lease. I reviewed it for the weekend. I rewrote it, because years ago I used to do that stuff. So I rewrote it. I wanted this, I wanted that. I handed it over to them. They came back to me and said one thing they wouldn't do. Well, that was a deal breaker for me. And I said, no, you got to go back. You said you would do it. So take this lease. You said you would do it. And then they came back and said, no, we're not. That's okay. 2 days later, everything shut down for COVID. So when they told me they weren't going to do it, I felt like anyone else in this room. I felt, why? I spent all that time rewriting that lease. I knew what I was doing. They said that they were going to remove that old furniture, and now they came back and told me no. Why? I was angry until 2 days later. And then I went, whoa. Thank you, God. So in that moment, if it wasn't 2 days, it could have been months, or I could have, you see what I'm saying? So God protected me and said, no, it's not going to happen. But I didn't know what was going to happen until then. So I was so grateful and trust and believe me, after that big experience, I said, oh, okay, I'm not going to push back or be irritated as much as I was then. And know that when things don't work out, there is a reason.
Speaking of protection, in 2022, as we're at the tail end of COVID, since you mentioned COVID, I was looking to get a second house. So I was going to take some of the equity of this house and buy another one, and I was going to do it cash. I spoke to the person, we had everything set, and then they increased the price, which was something that I didn't agree to, similar to you. And I took a step back and I said, I don't think I want to do this anymore. I was disappointed, I was hurt that they would do that to me.
Yeah.
A month or so later, property values went down. And I
Yes.
was like, yes, God is
Yes.
good
Yes. God
all
is
the
good.
time.
Yes.
You know, while
Yes.
I'm rejoicing, the person probably wants to kill me at this point, right? But when you mentioned that, it reminded me of that story. And I share that, and you share that because sometimes we don't know why something is happening,
Yes.
but we need to sometimes trust that it's happening
Yes.
for the best of us. Is that
Yes.
hard for some people to realize, especially when it's not 2 days later or a month later, but it can go for
Yes.
months, maybe even years?
Yes. Yes. Because when they're putting their heart into something that they truly say they want, may it be a switch of a career after they've gotten out of college or this degree or a master's, and it takes them months or years to get that position they're looking for, it can be a form of being feeling disillusioned. What did I do? Did I make the right decision? But your heart guided you, your intuition guided you, specifically when it came, for college and the degree and all of that, because you were feeling that was something you wanted to do. During that time, you know, there's so many flashes I just got because I could take this a thousand different ways that I can talk about the house that I live in that I was looking, I sold my, this is a good one too. I sold my home and I said to myself, I'll give myself a year and I'll sell it in September 2010, September 1st, 2010. And that was a year in advance. And I visualized the amount that I wanted to sell it for. And in July of 2010, someone came to me and wanted to pay cash for the house. And I said, no, 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 hold on, because I got to move. And I, I was a single mom still at the time. And I said, no, that's too soon. And they said, okay, September 1st. So I gave it a year in advance. So I manifested that. And then I manifested exactly how much it would sell for. Because again, I was focusing on it for a year and then that happened. And then when I sold it, I still didn't find a place to buy because it had to be in a certain location for the girls' schools. And I wanted a townhouse and, so many things. So my list was kind of tight. So I said, I'll rent this apartment for 6 months. It turned into 3 years. Now, during that time, I wasn't frustrated. I wasn't angry because what was happening was that I wanted this certain location, but the price point was a little beyond a single mom. So I'm like, well, we'll look here and we'll look here. Every weekend, I am not exaggerating. Every weekend, I would look with the real estate agent for 3 years. I knew every single house on the market. By the time I found it, Terrain, I'm telling you, I have no idea how I got the money in the bank. I Every time we would look at another property in 6 months, she would say, let's go to this price point. And my agent kept creeping it up. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't want to be house boy. I don't know if I could do that. And I don't know. And I don't know. And she's like, Terrie, come on. And by the time that she showed me this house, I walked in and I said, this is it. This is it. And the woman had just put it on the market. And then she's like, I don't want to sell it now. And I said, well, then you're going to lose a sale because I'm wanting it now. So she said, okay, the money was there. I have no idea. And let me tell you, I've been here 11 years and it's the perfect house in a perfect location. It was perfect for the girls when they were in school because now they're off on their own. And it's those, and that was to answer your perfect question when it comes to years. You cannot get frustrated on the things that you think you're not getting. I stayed patient. I kept saying, "Oh, I don't know." And I could even feel my heart going, "Oh, it was kind of condensing a little bit." But she was holding my hand the entire time. Just look, just feel it out. And it magically happens when it is perfect for you. Let me tell you, the job will appear, the partner will appear, your perfect pet will appear. Everything, when it's perfect and you trust and you know and you release the resistance and the doubt, it will all fall into place. I am I am you. I know I have some magical powers are a little bit more different than you, but we all can do this. And so you see how passionate I get about this because I know I teach intuitive development. So I know that we can all do it. We're just having to clear, I call it like the smoke rings from our childhood and all the conversations and the doubt and you're not good enough thoughts and words around us. But once we eliminate that and say, be a dog fresh out of a tub and shake it all off and say, that's not what my soul is saying that I want. When you live in the perfect path of what your soul is singing for, then it all blooms. I'm telling you, it's perfect in every way. And I bet you have some magical moments too, because I hear what you're saying.
Well, you did say earlier that you know everything about me just by my first name and the conversation. So I think we know quite a bit about each other, but I do. And to continue with the house story, when I got this house, I knew this was the house that I wanted. It was in the location that was beneficial for me at that point in life. I needed to get away from the city because I was in the city and it was a distraction. When I got this house, I was so overjoyed. I even took a selfie with the deposit check back when we had
Oh,
checks, right?
yeah. Well, we had checks.
Right? When we had checks, right?
Yes.
We're aging each other, ladies and
Yes.
gentlemen, here.
Yes. Yes, we are.
But one thing that happened, which kind of put a downer, is I want to share this excitement with people. Looking back, as I put on my coach hat, I'm like, uh-oh, Train, why did you do that? Because then you run into the opportunity or the possibility, sorry, of sharing it with the wrong person, which I did. So when I invited people over, one person came over out of the group and they said, Terrain, why is it that you can get a house and I can't?
Mm.
Took the air out of the room. Before the end
Hmm.
of that, I got this house September 11th. Coincidence, everyone, for those in America, in 2009.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Wow.
before the end of that year, we're no longer friends. I share that
Mm.
story because sometimes when we find our success, sometimes when we see these beautiful things happening in our life,
Yeah. Yeah.
we can be maybe discouraged because we include the wrong people.
Yes.
Do you see that impacting people where they have joys in their life and they're thinking they're doing the right thing by sharing it with others, but sometimes they turn
Yeah.
that joy into disappointment?
Yes. Yes. And the ones that have a tendency to disappoint us the most are our family members, right? I see this quite often with my clients where, the majority of my clients are women. I do take care of couples and men and small children as well. But I would say 70% of my clients are women, and they'll come to me and they're so distraught over mom is so judgmental and mom's trying to tell me and mom doesn't accept me for who I am and all of this stuff. And the number one thing, my children, I got this flash, my children would say, Mommy, what do you want for Christmas? And I would always tell them, world peace. I said that every year because I always feel that oh, I just got another flash that if we just celebrate each other and release the judgment of what you think you should have or what they shouldn't be doing. I don't play I don't, LeBron James, and he has his son. he had, do you remember the article where he was helping his son? It was either through coaching or a program or something. LeBron got torn up with helping his son. Like, oh, Nepo baby, all of these comments. And I kept saying, I said, please, world, can you not see that this man worked? He hustled to get where he is. He brought babies into this world. There's nothing wrong. We all, as parents, want to guide and lift our children. It just depends on what we can offer and the positions that we place ourselves in. So I'm sharing that because it's very similar to our own family members and our friends. So we should celebrate each other, lift each other. I'm constantly talking. I network and I meet people for the first time and they tell me something that may be really small and I'm dancing as if I just won an award because I'm like, I am so happy for you because I'm sure that was something that they wanted or they wouldn't even have shared it. So if we can celebrate each other and say, you worked hard, or I'm sure whatever. And even if they magically did it and that they were right place in the right time, well, it was their energy, their thoughts, their thinking. A lot of their limiting beliefs were cleared. They hustled through it emotionally, physically, spiritually. Yes. When you get a win, yes. Terrain, when you got that, yes. And you felt great. You said, look, selfie. Oh, yes. And we all should be celebrating you for that, not lowering you because you didn't get it. It's you, not Terrain. It's you for what you were brought up. Hustle through it, get through it, push through it, and say, I don't want, like I did as a child, but I chose it after the car accident because I saw and I kept hearing and oh, and oh, and oh. And I finally just said, KNOW and get the hell out of my way. And I was 8 years old. But my parents positioned us to be in survival mechanisms constantly. So I had to turn that to survive from her, my dad, and the world around me. The funny thing, Terrain, and everybody listening, my mom placed us all in that, and all three of us are successful entrepreneurs. Because when you place children in a position of survival, they turn into risk takers. They turn into a figuring things out no matter what. Not doing it to be aggressive and saying, get out of my way. They do it internally saying, get out of my way, like, how can I get around this? Because that's what I always did. My head was constantly looking for ways to move the pieces of the puzzle and not in a manipulative way, in a success way. How can I turn that no into yes? And I didn't have to hear it out of my mom's mouth because I magically made it happen. Everybody can do it. You were sharing your success stories. Obviously, you did some things, and I know people listening. Just you can. It's not a spot. Well, it's not. I don't want to delete. It's not a sporadic. That's the word I was looking for. Thing. It can be a constant thing. When you wake up every day, Terrain, I say, today is a great adventure. Today, bring it on. And at the end of the day, I think I do this every night. I'm finishing brushing my teeth. I start coming to the bed. I said, I'm coming, God, because we have a conversation every night. I'm coming. I climb into bed and I look, even if I'm exhausted and I can fall asleep in 10 seconds, I will turn and I'll look up and I'll say, thank you for being there for me. Thank you for another great adventure. Thank you for everything that happened for me today. I may have just had one client and I came home and I washed clothes, but the opportunity to have a roof over my head, wash machine that's working, a client that I had, it was a great adventure. Everything is different for you, my friends. Every moment of your life is different. You're standing in a different place of the house. You're in the car at a different time. The stoplight and stop signs, they're all different at different times, different days. Never say you didn't do anything today. Don't say nothing's changed. everything changes. You have to decide, what do you want to change in you for all of your exterior to change to match what you say your heart wants and your soul is craving for.
I've always shared with people that being kind and nice is free, and being negative and destructive is so expensive. You may not realize it today, but you realize it sometime in the
Yeah.
future. And you mentioned what you do waking up every day. Every day I wake up, I'm like, thank God that I'm awake and I
Yes.
choose to have a good day. And the key word there
Yes.
is choose, because for many of us,
Yes.
it is a choice. And someone
Yes.
asked me one day, Train, does anything bother you? And I said, many things bother me. The difference is I don't hold on to it.
Yes.
And the person asked me, how do you do that? I just choose not to. When you've done the work, you get to that point where you can wake up after having a stressful day the previous night. Your mind is clear. Where some people, it lingers. It impacts the way they speak to their children. It impacts the way they speak to their partner. It even impacts the type of food that they make for yourself. I'm not worthy of a good meal. Let me eat
Mm.
crap and crap and crap and crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you, with the clients, how do you see maybe their traumatic experiences showing up in their behavior and, of course, their body, which could be their health?
The health is usually the number one. It shows up as procrastination, the fear of. Uh, I love my flashes. I was working with a 12-year-old and she was becoming completely the opposite child she was within a very short period of time. And when I worked with her for an hour, so I create safety. I create safety with all of my clients, no matter how old they are. And within that safety, they feel safe that they can share. Children are easy. You just start talking and I start saying, do you believe in angels? And tell me about your dreams, and now they feel safe that they can tell me certain things. And then I'll start asking them certain questions. And in this particular situation, she started to self-harm and she, was doing things very drastically. And when I finally, it took me about 30 minutes because she was resisting. Didn't feel safe to even communicate in her household. When she finally felt safe, she started telling me her feelings, the things that she may like. And I say may because she was 12. And so she's just beginning to think that, oh, I might like girls and I might like this and I might like that. And she started listing all these things. And I said, tell me more about that. And how does that make you feel? Again, now I'm hearing her. I'm hearing the feelings of what she's going through. But what was happening on the other side, the caregivers were telling her the opposite. Don't do this because, the Bible tells you not to do that and you would be demon and, whatever, labeling all these things. And so when you're saying this as the adult, yes, we're trying to guide our children, but society is open to quite a lot of different things compared to where most of us used to be. Excuse me. And we have to be very gentle, especially with our children, on what we are asking of them. So if you're wanting to know more about your children, it's better for them to feel safe that they can share their feelings, what they like, what they don't like, what their activities are, and their friends at school, instead of saying the opposite of what you think they should be doing. And so when I opened all of that up, and then she shared all of that, I knew instantaneously what was happening. She had an emotionally disconnected mother, so she didn't feel safe with that at all. And a dad who was trying to tell her, if you do this or act like this, you're not going to be the one that I would love, in certain words. He didn't use those, but in certain words. And so dad asked me So, what do you think's wrong with her? Does she have the fear of failure? And I said, no, she has the fear of success. He's like, what? What do you mean? The child was wanting something so much that if she got what she wanted, she would lose her daddy. That's the fear of success. That's how that can turn into that. And he was blown away, couldn't believe what I had said. No, you're wrong. And I'm like, okay, but I was right. So when you have these things of what is going on in your internal decision making, thoughts, again, children thinking, first time thinking and receiving it and bringing it forth. I'm so sorry, as an adult. And then you're tortured between, I really want this. Why don't I have it? I see it one way. Why doesn't everybody else see it my way? It's this constant struggle and tug of war. Are you still with me on this? And so when we finally stop long enough to accept that we individually are the creators, and I know everybody's heard this line of our destiny, of our path, of our end result. We truly are if you believe it, but it's within you that you have to be able to see things much differently than maybe where you're seeing it now. There's somebody listening to this or who will listen to it. I got it. So I just heard this bing. I just heard it. Someone got it that they realize that I have to stop right here and stop forcing a certain way of the way I'm wanting someone else to think it or see it, or even forcing myself like it's got to be this way. Because there are a lot that I need it this way, and it's not going to happen that way. It's going to happen the way that it just happens in a spiritual, energetic way to fulfill the things that you are deeply saying you want. It can be completely the opposite of what you're thinking. Just like you had experienced, Doreen, about the house, and as I shared several of my own stories. But the more we embrace the you said something like you know, yes, choice. We all do have a choice. Purpose. Our entire purpose in this world for every single one of us, it's not individualized. It's to expand and grow. That is everyone's purpose. Everything else, Terrain, is a choice. You're spot on. Everything. Oh, I just heard something else. So also what we don't realize, and these are everybody's light will go off. Everything we do when we do things for others is a gift. Do you know that when you're making dinner for your family, it's a gift? When you're washing the clothes, it's a gift. Putting the dishes away, it's a gift. I taught my kids that when they were young, because when I kept asking them to come to the table 100 times, I finally said, let's sit at the table now. And I said, do you all understand that when I cook, it's a gift? I don't have to. I said, yes, as parents, we should. There are several people and parents that don't. But when I do it through my heart. I do it with love. I put love into my cooking and making sure that you're fed and nourished properly. It's a gift. And I said to hear thank you would be wonderful. To this very day, my children thank me every time I make dinner, give them gifts because they realize that everything around them is a gift. So once we realize that, this conversation is a gift. Your podcast is a gift to the world. Then all of a sudden, I just felt my heart open up. We can receive more of these wonderful gifts and realize there's not so much struggle in the world. Remember, I was saying that we created to be hard. Just flip it. That's a nice gift. That person just, made it. That's a gift. My child, gave me something. That's a gift. And all this back and forth, you saying yes to me, Terrain, that was a gift. And that's why I'm grateful for every time someone says yes. But once we flip all of that, life doesn't seem to be such a burden.
You're right, because it's easier for us to recognize a gift when it has a physical wrapping, right? We just came out of Christmas, so like that,
Yes.
under the
Yes.
tree. Many times we miss the gifts that have the emotional wrapping. A mother, a
Yes.
father making dinner for their child. That is a gift wrapped in emotions. I love you. I want you to
Yes.
be well fed. I want you to experience this type of love. Or if you help someone purchase a home, or if you're supportive, or if you're having beautiful conversations like you and I are having, it's a gift to each other because
Yes.
our gifts to each other come together to form a bigger gift where we put into the world for them to recognize, for them to cherish, for them to be nourished by it.
Yes.
In what ways can we further help those to develop their own gifts, but also to recognize the gifts that others are giving to them?
Well, I kind of explained it like, when you're seeing like this conversation, your podcast, just that alone, when I said this podcast is a gift, if people hear that and take it into their heart, they can immediately transform right here through this podcast and say, when I go to work, having a parking space is a gift. Having a boss that supports me is a gift. Having a coworker that brought me a bottle of water is a gift. And then realizing they can look at the person in the eye and say, man, this entire world is actually giving me versus me feeling less lack. So that can help shift a lot of that, to answer your question. And I forgot the beginning of it because I got so involved.
No, that leads me to something else because now, since you mentioned that, you mentioned all these external factors, what do you
Yes.
think maybe is preventing people from seeing these gifts?
Because they feel that number one, life is hard and they struggle and they're not getting what they want. They're putting in a box. I need to have it a certain way. All I see is that I have no money in the bank. Delete, delete, delete. All they see is, oh, I'm struggling with this or my partner or my failed marriage because they're focusing on what is falling apart or what they don't have. And that's why I was saying I start my day by saying, today is a great adventure. I just woke up. It hasn't even started. But when you set the intent that that's what you're going to have, then you can see it differently and you can see that things are more supportive for you. That you can start saying that this isn't so bad after all. It's simply baby steps. But my friends, you do still have to take the first step. So all of these things that Terrain and I are saying is our opportunities to take many first steps. You just have to take action on it. But again, it's a choice.
Adjust your lens, change your perspective, right?
Absolutely.
I wonder what would present for those who are thinking we're being toxic positivity, we're not.
Actually, you know what you were saying and I'm hearing? I wanted to say everything you're saying seems so sexy. For me, it's like, ooh, yes.
Yeah, there's times where I talk to myself like this and I feel sexy. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of, kind of love it myself. But I had to get there because that's what I had to do because I would beat myself up because I was failing everywhere in life, in my relationships, in my professional relationships, my
Yeah,
romantic, my familiar
yeah.
relationships, until I looked in the mirror and I said, Terrain, what do you want to do? What do you want? I didn't blame anyone else. I could have. I could have blamed my upbringing. I could have blamed my skin color. I could have blamed my where my parents lived. I could have blamed everything. I just said,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Terrain, what do you
mm-hmm.
want to be? You have a choice. So what I did, I removed the obstacles.
Mm,
And once I did that, for all those who've heard the song, I can see clearly now the rain is gone. Everything made
mm,
sense because the clouds were gone, the sun was shining, and my lens changed and my perception of everything changed. There's this
yes.
movie where it's called Constantine, where he has this gift, since we're using the word gift. He can see the demons in people. I
Mm,
started to see the unhealthy behaviors in people that I knew was impacting me because I saw them in my 20s.
yes.
I knew what it looked like. I knew what it smelled like. I can smell them from a different city. That's how in tuned I
Mm,
became because I needed to be, because if I didn't, Terry, I would not have become the person I am today. And let me tell you, as I hit
mm,
40, I love me, right? You mentioned 30s and
mm,
40s. I tell people, you get out of your 20s, like for me, that was just survival mode, and we joke that we don't even recognize each other who we were in our
mhm.
20s.
Yeah,
You get to your late 30s, 40s, I want to say 50s. That's when you're like, okay, I know exactly who I am and who I want to
yeah,
be if you've done the work,
that's right.
right? Would you
That's
agree?
right. That is absolutely right. There, and when we say the work, the first thing most half of the people walk out the door. Work, right? I'm working already. I don't need any more work. It's a different kind of work. It's a soul fulfilling work. It's it's learning how to be more present for yourself. When you are present for yourself, you're instantaneously present for everyone else. The work, you know, I work with a lot of individuals that have young children, and I tell them, you know, shift the mindset of the child pretty quickly now. And as they come to you and say, Mommy, Daddy, this schoolwork is so hard, I say, tell them it's new. It's just new. And learning something new can appear to be hard, but it's simply just new. It takes that pressure off of thinking, I gotta get through this, even though I gotta hustle and squeeze and push through. It's so hard. But once it's new, then it's almost inviting. You can lean into it, right? And so it's a matter of just being able to shift a lot of what you're saying in yourself, acting for yourself, releasing judgment. That's such a big thing. Even to this day, I'll go like, oh, wait a minute, what did I just say? Because, it's a constant, it's a lifestyle. Being present, listening to what's coming out of your mouth at all times. How you're walking, how does the body feel? And then you can smell something a mile away. That's actually when you supersize, when you become more present, your senses supersize. I don't know if it ever happened to you, Terrain, but when I started becoming extremely present, I could hear a drop upstairs and I might be in the basement going, what was that? Or I was driving and I'm like, what is that smell? And I would drive for like, you know, half a mile and there was a trash truck because my senses were just so superimposed because now I'm fully present and engaged in life. And when you're that way, how could the things not appear in what you want by your simple thoughts and your actions and your gifts to the world itself? Because as you give, you shall receive. It's just the fact of life. It's how energy works. Get out of the rut of saying that everybody else has it. Get out of the thought process that it never happens for me. Delete, delete. Get out of the thought process that it's too hard, just new. Get out of the thought process that that's just who I am. I have heard that so many times, and I'm like, so you came out of the womb thinking that you're a procrastinator? Your environment is part of your personality. Change it. You have the choice. Terrain said it. It's true.
I've seen so many people as they get older bury themselves in, let's say, work. All these distractions preventing them from realizing that they could accomplish so much more. Whereas they'll do, and you mentioned that you're in corporate, I'm in corporate, you do 8 hours, 10 hours, you take all these hours, all these days of training. But when it comes to yourself, you won't give yourself 2 hours?
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? I tell meditate. Oh, I don't have an hour. You know, my schedule is pretty tight. I meditate every day because to me, there's certain things that I will not live the next day without doing. Brushing my teeth, taking a shower, meditating. Meditating keeps me calm, keeps me grounded. I get answers and clarity. I manifest, I create, I supersize. I'm fully connected and fully present.
I think sometimes it's an excuse because and I say that not to be well, yes, I am being disrespectful. I'm that kind of
That's
guy.
okay.
But
That's okay.
a little bit, right? I say that because there's 24 hours in the day, and let's say the average person works 8 hours. Let's say Monday to Friday, they work 8 hours, right? And let's say you have to travel. I work from home, but let's say you have to travel an hour to hour from. So that's 10 hours. And let's say you're getting the 6 to 8 hours of sleep. So let's say you get 8 hours, that's 18 hours. Those 6 hours,
Hmm.
are you using that to replenish yourself? Or are you doing that to please others? Do
Yeah.
other things that maybe don't benefit your life. And there's one woman, because I usually work with older women when it comes to my coaching, and she
Mm,
said, Terrain, I need to work because I don't want to be homeless or I want to maintain this certain lifestyle. And I was like, so what I'm hearing, it sounds like you're in survival mode and you're not
mm,
thriving, but you're surviving. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, take away your job or change your job. Who are you? She's like, I don't know. I've always been this job. Okay. So I'm like, you're 50 now. So in a couple of years, when you retire, who are you? Like, I don't see a life with retirement. I was like, oh,
mm.
so this job is your spouse, your family, your children.
Yeah.
She's like, I didn't think about it like that. I was like, yeah, you've been sleepwalking through life. You've been so involved in all these other things. You haven't taken a moment to think about yourself. Take a moment. And I asked her, I was like, so what do you want to be? What do you want to do? And she's like, I have no idea. Terry, when you hear, even though you don't know her like I may have known her, when you hear these things in general, what are your impressions of someone who's saying that their job is their identity, they don't understand the gifts they have, and they don't even see themselves as anything other than someone to punch a clock?
Yeah. Well, the way I work, I go into the subconscious and why they're hanging on to that because it can be where mom and dad were emotionally disconnected from each other. So in order and now her life is living through attracting emotionally disconnected people. So now she is emotionally disconnected. And so now all she's doing is rotating on the hamster wheel from hell. Right? And so it really comes down to that what the end result of someone's life, what where they are right this minute is a large part of their childhood. That's the reality of all this. Unless they've worked through someone like you, someone like me, who's been able to reveal their conscious subconscious space and to help them see things and shift things differently, unless someone is ready, willing, and able to step up and say, I don't want what I have, I want what I want. When a person makes that decision, then you cannot hold them back. They will jump mountains to have their life where they want it to be. And so she was just on the hamster wheel and then have she accepted unacceptable, meaning I'm just going to do this, but I don't have anything else, but I'm very exhausted. I'm disconnected. I'm tired. I'm lonely. I'm frustrated and I have nothing. But she has everything. She has everything that's supporting her. It's just she's looking at what she doesn't have. That's the thing. That's why I was saying start the morning. Today's a great adventure. I even was saying a couple times, today's my birthday, even though it wasn't my birthday. I birthed today. I'm birthday. It's my birthday. And I would celebrate it through that as well. But when people get into those grooves, it's like the horse pulling the buggy with the little blinders on, that all they see is what's right in front of them. And that's all I see. And you'll find those type of people will have quite a bit of judgment, will only see things one way. They're hard-headed and very resistant. And it really is about working in their subconscious to help bring forth why they truly are struggling.
You mentioned the subconscious. Could then that be, in some cases, a form of guilt and shame impacting them?
Oh, of course, absolutely. You know, you could have I was waiting for the flash. So guilt. I hear this a lot that and it well, I hear this a lot with family members. The family may be in a certain um generational price points, where they all make a certain amount of money, where one figures it out, just like I did in my family. I don't hear N-O-K-N-O-W. So this one in the family starts supersizing, gets out of the, lower income bracket and starts moving up. Then what happens? Who do you think you are? You're leaving us behind. Why are you doing that? Can you help me? You know? And it's like it's like this little bubble is starting to pull away, but they're choosing again the choice of saying, I want more. But no, hold on, I'm going to pull you back. And so now this one that is wanting to just float away is starting to feel guilt. Why can't they do it? Or they're making me feel like I shouldn't be successful. And now I'm torn between the love of my family and the things that I want, that my heart is saying. I don't want to keep struggling, but they seem to be fine with the struggle. And so that's where it's like this torment. I see it and I'm like, ugh. So then I have to clear that subconscious that they can say, all of those little individuals, let's take the label off. Take mom off. Now she's a woman. Dad, sister, brother, cousin, nephew, all of them. Now they're just people. People who have made their own decisions, who have their own limiting beliefs, who are choosing to see things their way and decide things their way. That has nothing to do with you. But because that label makes you think, and society says, don't leave family behind, family's number one. And then you have that torture. And that's where that guilt of like, I just want to be free. I want to be free from them who keeps themselves down. And I want to be free to be able to feel like I can be celebrated. There's that thing about celebrating, right? So that's where that like, but that's an internal torture. So what I say, all of them, elf on the shelf. Elf on the shelf. You do you. You succeed for you. Because if you hold yourself down because of them, because their choices, that's their choices, don't make them yours. Then you can say, I'm sorry. I would hope that you would celebrate me. You're my family. You're my friend. You're my this. I would hope. But since you can't, Bye.
I call it taking them off the God throne and realizing they put their underwear on one leg at a time, just like you.
There you go.
Let me
I
ask you,
love
Terry,
it.
before I let you go, I have one final question, but I want to do it a little differently.
Ooh,
I want to give you, shoulder shaking and all,
yes.
three wishes. And with this, you can wish for three things that you want them to know about this question. So, what are three things you wish people knew about putting themselves first
Mm.
and why?
Number one, I wish you knew what I see, know, and hear. I wish you, because if you knew, you would be just like this. That's one. If you knew. Number two, I wish that everything that you and I shared, that every single person that hears this takes some form of action because I know it will help you in some way, shape, or form. I know. Yes. And one more. I wish, I wish that everyone could have a sense of living in, oh gosh, there's so many, and this is my last one. Living in gratitude. I wanted to say truth. If I could say truth and gratitude, how's that? Because I was torn with both. The more you're grateful, and that's why I threw in, life is a gift, the things that are giving. I threw those because they're so